sometimes I may feel like I'm in the back burner,
Right.
but it's not really that. It's we're evolving as humans, which is what you're supposed to do.
Right.
So yeah, you're marrying the unknown, and you know, again, like, how do men deal with that? How do women deal with that? So
Right.
it's never a thing where it's just a one script, one blueprint. You're
Right.
continuously trying to figure things out, communication, and I want to have real conversations about how people deal with these things.
Yeah.
Yo, welcome back Inside the Mind, episode 11. I am your host, John Reese, and we have another men's physique guest in the building. My guy, he's been in here for about 8 years now competing.
Oh man,
Crazy.
yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
My man turned pro 2019 at the Muscle Contest USA's. He's done about 10 pro shows now, has 3 top 5 placings. My man has been killing it. My guy, Franky, in the building.
What's
How
up?
you doing, man?
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, as we, kind of talked a little bit before, this is pretty much about, how we think and how we feel as bodybuilders, getting inside of our minds and allowing people who tune in to understand like the deeper concepts as far as outside of reps and macros and what we eat and how much cardio and stuff like that, man. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity to, tell your story a little bit and people get a little more intellectual side of Franky.
I'm excited. I
Absolutely.
hope I lead an interesting life and give some insight about bodybuilding and mental health and so forth.
Absolutely, man. So first and foremost, with everything that's going on right now with the division, as far as your business, as far as competition, you are pretty busy. So I would like to do like a mental check-in and just ask, like, where are you at in your mental space and how are you feeling these days?
In regards to my mental health, I think it's a seasonal thing. And my answer right now is going to be a little different versus if you were going to ask me maybe 4 weeks later or even 2 months ago. And I say that because right now I'm just 3 weeks out. So I'm in the trenches. And I've been kind of quiet about competing again because, first half of the year I did 2 shows, didn't do well at all. Very embarrassing performance. So I'm trying to end on a good note this year.
Got you.
But with that being said, being 3 weeks out, obviously I'm a little more drained, pushing the diet more. But I'm still, I remind myself that this is voluntary and
Yes.
optional. It's no one's forcing me to compete. So, I just try to stay positive. I have a great support system with my wife and my family. So my business is steady. And so I'm very grateful that, I work and I have a stable income. And at the end of the day, I have food and a roof above my head. So I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Can't complain.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you voicing all that. Support system is very important in what we do, man. And yeah, you have been quiet because I wouldn't even have known you was 3 weeks out.
Yeah.
So, but that's good, man. You got to protect your mental health in that aspect too, man. I know some people would rather stay quiet than be, open about, what it is and they're doing, and that's pretty much fine. Social media can be very tricky these days.
Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit of actually, because you've been in this for 8 years, like what got you started into bodybuilding?
Well, after high school, I unfortunately couldn't pursue sports anymore. So I'm sure this is a very similar story with a lot of people. I played basketball and volleyball in high school, and then
Mhm.
after that, I was like, well, where do I channel my inner competitiveness, my drive to grind and put in work for something? And that something became my competitive avenue became working out. And
Right.
initially, I was passionate about working out, and then I started seeing some of my friends compete in shows, and then it kind of got my interest. It sparked my interest, and then I was like, well, I'll give it a shot too. See if I do well. And I wasn't planning on doing it for long, actually, and I did fairly well. my first show, I actually uh, competed in a different organization before I went to NPC, and I was able to get my pro card in that organization after
Nice,
my first
nice.
show. And then I was like, you know what? I'll keep going with it, you know? And then after a few more years of just continuing to grow, I eventually did NPC and then obviously IFBB. And that's how I kind of got started. It was initially a hobby. And then I was able to channel my competitiveness into something else, which was now bodybuilding.
Got you. Yeah, that is definitely a similar story. Like I hooped in college, and after that, it was like, okay, what I do? Played in like adult rec leagues here and there, and then I ended up tearing my ACL. Well, I had a totally reconstructed knee actually. Like
Oh,
I
shoot.
competed in it. Yeah, this was 2016. So after going through rehab, healing, and trying to figure it out, trying to get back into shape because I was eating everything in the kitchen in rehab. And it was just like, man, what do I do? And then I knew friends who competed. So it's just like,
Yeah.
huh, what is this? And then I used to, talk to my mom about it. And then my mom used to be like, yeah, you should do it. And she wanted to see me do it. So I made a promise that I would do one show. And it's snowballed until about 11 now. So yeah,
Dang.
I totally get it, man. I
Yeah.
really do. So last year, you were making a splash, man. You were definitely making a splash in the league. So, and I know you mentioned how this year you feel as if you didn't do as good. Like what was the transition coming into this year? And then a two-part question is that after you competed earlier this year, how were you able to reestablish like a positive mindset going into, your next show?
Yeah, after last year, I did a total of 5 shows, and that's where I got most of my top 5 placings. I was making a
Mhm.
run. My coach was pushing me to run the gauntlet, and I think I got 4th, 3rd, and then at end of the year at Iron Games in Anaheim, a 2nd place finish.
I was
And I was
there
like,
for that.
this close to getting that qualification, you know?
Mhm.
And so transitioning into this year, we were like, well, let's my coach said, the iron's hot, so let's keep going, like, and don't stop, and just try to get that early qualification. Easier said than done, I'm sure you know. And like, there's
Mhm.
just everyone's leveling up every single year. There's hitters showing up to every show. There's no easy shows, and so even though my goal was to try to compete early, get the qualification early, possibly take a break, things don't go according to plan. And, you know, um, I think looking back on it now, I did 2 shows in April.
Mhm.
Yeah, April. And I would say it was a little rushed in the sense that I didn't really have that long of a break slash off season coming from November. I only had maybe like a month and a half to like really regather myself. And
Mm.
by the time April came, I realized it wasn't so much the physicality of it. My body was able to jump into another prep, but it was more of the mental aspect. And in the sense that I had to find myself having to refocus more often, which, you know, is difficult at times, to kind of
Absolutely.
regather myself and refocus and be like, okay, well, why am I doing this? Like, I'm suffering a little bit more than usual, which is part of prep. And then, but when I competed and I didn't get the placings I wanted, then you kind of get down on yourself. It's a cascade domino effect. You're like, dang, did I jump into this too early? Did I force the issue? Should I have just taken a break, a longer break? Um, so back in April when I did my 2 shows, I think it was Utah and a muscle contest show.
Right.
I
Mhm.
ended up getting second and third call outs. I think I got like 10th and 11th or something like that. And to me, I mean, every competitor is competitive and everyone tries to bring their best. And
Yep.
for me, that wasn't enough. And so I had to start at the bottom again and remind myself, like, hey, like, you're not entitled to win. Like, just because you got a second place finish last year doesn't mean anything, you know?
That's tough, man.
So it was like, It was how I handled the punches. And then in the middle of the year, May, June, and a little bit of July, I took a break and I was like, you know what? I feel better. I want to do one more show at least, which is the one in September in 3 weeks.
Okay.
And, I have a different mindset. Of course, I'm still going to bring my best, but it's more so like, let's end the year on a good note. And if I place top five, that's amazing. If I get the qualification, even better. But it's more so just finishing on a better note, on a positive note, and bring my best and kind of redeem myself.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, man, because I had the same type of feeling, like, even though the initial plan was to take the year off, and I still am, but I was, like, looking at the calendar like, "Man, I just wanna end the year on a good note or do
Yeah.
something like that, spark that drive." But, that balance of, no, keep progressing, stay in your pocket, the stage isn't going anywhere,
Yeah.
and then, like, that's the key thing. But you mentioned something as far as, like, you know you're not entitled to win, but we all are competitive. Like, how are you able to keep that mental balance? Because at the end of the day, like, yeah, you want the Olympia qualification, you want to win, like, you want to be, the best you, but the best in the division. But again, it's always 30 to 40 people. So, like, how
Yeah.
do you balance that to make sure you do stay in a positive mindset?
Um, I think it's a little bit of perspective in the sense that like I remind myself that I'm on my own timeline. In the sense that whether I achieve this goal of Olympia qualification in a year or 2 years or maybe even 3 years, I just got to remind myself like sometimes social media can be misleading because you see all these people who are like three-time Olympians, four-time Olympian, five-time Olympians, and you set that
Mhm.
goal for yourself, and you might not even realize, which I think is a fine goal. I mean, I want to get there once, and hopefully, when I get there once, hopefully I can go back to back. But
Right.
I got to get there first. But yeah, just reminding myself that hey, no one's rushing you. Um, and at the end of the day, once again, it's voluntary. You don't have to prep, and you shouldn't prep unless you feel good inside and out, and mentally and physically. Like
Mm.
there's some times where I could push the issue, and other times I should know when to back off. Like going back to the beginning of the year, I probably should have taken a longer break, and that taught me a valuable lesson in defeat. You know, Getting second, third call outs that taught me like, hey, like next time you compete again, make sure you're ready. And
Mhm.
but just balancing that, yeah, just reminding myself and keeping myself grounded. And I'm on my own timeline and nobody else's timeline.
Absolutely. Running your own race, man.
Yeah,
And like you said, man, what we do is voluntary. And the question you ask yourself is, I'm sure, what we all ask ourselves, like, why are we doing this?
yeah,
Why are we voluntarily? And you mentioned your goals, but when those you said, like, this year, like, that question was popping up even more so. Like, why is that, and how did you overcome that?
what was the question?
Like, as far as that question, "Why am I doing this?" Because,
Mm,
we voluntarily put ourselves through this, but you were saying that how that question would pop up in your mind more
yeah,
so this year. So why was it popping up more this year, and how were you able to pretty much overcome that?
yeah. I would say my why, and the reason why I was asking myself that is prep. In my opinion, prep isn't easy. There are ways to make prep easier, but I think when people say prep is easy, I think it's a little bit of a lie. I mean, prep isn't hard. You're voluntarily putting your body through high amounts of cardio. You're
Mhm.
dieting. You're missing social outings with friends and family that may or may not understand this lifestyle, and that's a whole different issue. And and so then it comes down to like, why are you doing this, Frankie? Like, why are you subjecting yourself through prep? What's your end goal? And of course, my end goal is to get to Olympia once. And if I get there once, I can retire happily. So
That's what's
that's
up.
that's my goal. Like,
Mhm.
to get there once and say I did that. And when I had my run last year, there were a lot of people that supported me that I didn't even realize supported me, and they were rooting for me, which I
Mhm.
appreciate because not everybody has that. And it's funny because like even some people that I expected to be rooting for me, on the other hand, weren't rooting for me. But on a more positive
Wow.
note, there were a lot of people that I didn't even know that were supporting me, that were rooting for me, and so that definitely gave me an extra why as well, like knowing that people want to see me succeed. And in this world and in this community, bodybuilding community, it can be toxic at times. People are rooting for your downfall, you know?
Man.
And especially in a subjective sport, there's only one winner. So it's very easy to like fall into that um headspace where it's either your success or everybody else's downfall. But you can have friends along the way. You could be rooting for
Yeah,
along
it's
the
not
way.
rocket science, like,
Yeah.
it's and
So
it's so crazy, man. Yeah, man, you got a lot more supporters than you thought or think, I'll tell you that. I know every time like, the one thing that sticks out to you, or for me, to you and your physique, is your shoulders, bro. It don't matter what shirt you got on.
we're
I'm like,
okay.
yo, I see him from like a mile away. I promise you. Especially like when it's show day, and I've been at, I think, your last two muscle contest shows, I believe. So like, yeah, and so going back to Iron Games, right? Getting on a soapbox a little bit, you were this close to achieving your goal, achieving your dream. So, in the midst of when prejudging is over, where are you at mentally, knowing it's just you and Jonas? Like, where are you at as far as your headspace there?
My after prejudging and I got off stage, my adrenaline was like at an all-time high because I think I did 10 pro shows, and this was like the end of my run for last year
Right.
where I was inching closer and closer to. So to me that run was very like surreal. To me,
Mhm.
it's like, dang, I've gotten like 15th place before, 13th, 11th, and then all of a sudden I'm getting like top five. And so to me, like that entire run, and especially Iron Games, was like peak adrenaline and surreal feelings. And so I
Mhm.
was just really just kind of reeling in the moment, enjoying it, and just trying to be present in the moment. And I wasn't necessarily expecting the win, but I was really hoping for it. And to
Hmm.
be in the final, it was a final three call out, not a final two.
I was. I think,
And
who
so
else was
it
there?
kind
Was
of
it
threw me
Josh
off.
that was in there?
Yeah, Josh. It was
Yeah.
Josh, Jonas,
Mhm.
and I.
Right.
So it kind of threw me off. I kept myself grounded. I was like, you don't even know if you're gonna be third or second or first. Like it's a final three-man call out. And so, but I just reminded myself, you know what, like you got here. And so just enjoy it, And so, yeah, it was all positive, all positive.
And I was hyped for you. I ain't gonna lie. And I wasn't nowhere near stage ready at that time. It's just dope to see like the work. Cause again, like being a fan, and we're literally probably like an hour away from each other, but it's like your work speaks for itself, bro. Like you put in a lot of pain as far as what you post, and it's just like, man, it's gonna happen. And like you said, you're on your own timeline, man. And to get that close and go on a run like that, it was really dope to see. So like I'm excited for you on this next one. Hopefully it happens for you. If not, continue to keep driving to that dream of yours, man.
Yeah, yeah.
So the support system, because you mentioned two sides of it. You have, the side that understands what you're doing, and then the side that doesn't, and then there's you, like, literally in the middle. So talk about how hard that was in the beginning of your career versus to how it is now. And maybe it still is hard because you got people pulling you two different ways, family, friends. Like, how hard is it to find that balance for you?
Um, the beginning of my career versus now is definitely different. Beginning when I was still an amateur and kind of testing the waters of competing, then definitely friends and family. would be like, "Why are you doing this? Why are you dieting? Can you hear it's like, "Well, you can eat this, like, you could just do a little more cardio later, like, what's wrong with that?"
No.
Like, and it's not how it works, it's the principle, like,
Right.
sure, I can have a bite of your cookie or whatever it is and do, like, 20 minutes of cardio, but this is the principle, you know?
Mhm.
So in the beginning, it was more so like when I was still an amateur and kind of just like, are you even gonna go far in this? Like, why are you? Why? What's your why? But versus now, it's funny. My girlfriend, which is my wife, when
Mhm.
I started competing in NPC back in 2018 or 2017, around
Mhm.
there, she was. We joke about it now because she's like, I'm gonna give you 1 year to turn pro, or else you shut it down. And then come 2019, I went to my first USAs and I
And
turned
turn
pro.
pro.
And then, so now we laugh about it because I was like, well, what
Uh,
if I didn't turn pro? Would you have made me like, quit this? At that time, it was a hobby.
right.
And as you know, bodybuilding is an expensive hobby.
Uh,
Expensive. I mean, it's just so hypocritical in today's society where eating a healthy diet is way more expensive than a $1 menu at McDonald's. And
man, that is a
that's just
whole
real.
nother topic. That
That's
is
just real
crazy.
truth. So,
Mm,
I understood where she was coming from, but she was more
mhm.
so pushing me as well, coming from a positive standpoint. So, but we laugh about it now, and I'm like, and I joke with her now. I was like, well, now that I'm at this point in my career where I'm a pro and not an amateur anymore, like, are you gonna be like, you have 1 more year to make the Olympia, or we shut it down? You know? Because no, but she would never do that. She actually is like really rooting for me
Mm.
and really wants me to get there once in my competitive career before I hang out the shorts. And so, but I wouldn't be able to do it without her. Like she was with. I mean, we've dated 9 or 10 years now. 9 years. Been married 1 year,
Nice.
and so she's
Nice.
been through it all as an amateur, struggling, becoming a pro, struggling as a pro, almost getting that qualification, hitting rock bottom, and now trying to end on a positive note. So she's been through it all and she just wants me to succeed. She's sometimes even more competitive than me. She's like, so, but yeah, like I've actually been very blessed to have a good support system, specifically my wife and my family, who took a little bit to understand, the demands and requirements of the sport. But now they're rooting for me. I never really had um, too much of a pull per se. Maybe some of my friends at in the beginning of my career would be like, "Hey, like, why do you work out 6 days a week and do cardio 6 days a week and volunteer to compete?" Like they kind of make fun of you, kind of not. They're like, "Why do you get tanned and go on stage and be half naked for people?" I'm sure you heard that. Everyone's heard that.
I
It's
hear it too
if
much,
you're not
man.
in it, if you're not in it, then you don't really understand it. So I don't blame them. And occasionally I'll get that from acquaintances or coworkers as well, and I don't take offense to it because like they're not in this world. So, but overall, I've had a great support system, and honestly, I wouldn't be where I am today without it because I think that's been my X factor. Having people that understand that, hey, this is my passion, this is what I'm investing my time, efforts, and money into, and I want to do well in it. And because I never got that pullback, I was able to go like most of the time 100% into it. I never really had any difficulty, so I'm very lucky.
Yeah, man. It's tough, man. Especially on my end, because I have like real close friends who've been to, the shows, and it's just like, dang, like even like 50 and 60-year-olds are looking good. And he was like, I just don't understand like why y'all gotta go through all these extreme measures just to get on stage. And I'm just like, all right, man, some things aren't meant for you to understand, and
Yeah,
that's perfectly okay. So we talk about that 15 seconds of fame that we get on stage, and we diet for 16, 20, 24 weeks just to get up there and display all this hard work. And our passions speak through that. So those who support that, it goes a long way. So shout out to your wife, everybody on your side of the family, friends, all of them that support you. Shout out to all of them because yeah, I'm on the same boat, man. Without, my support system, I definitely would not be doing none of this. Sometimes my wife be ready, like, "Are you done?"
Yeah.
Because again, like you're in it for 8. I started in 2019, like barely prepping for my first show going into like April of that year. So this is year 4 for me, and I'm taking year 4 off. So she questions it a lot, but again, it's just more so she knows like I'm very passionate about it. But this is just my time to give back. But she has her moments where it's just like, dude, you're driving yourself crazy. Like you're miserable. Like, and we just gotta, deal with what comes with it, man. So it is what it is. I prioritize a lot of self-care stuff anyway. Like I'm trying to get into meditation more. I know I pray a lot, but I definitely want to start meditating. And we talk about therapy on here a lot too, as far as like previous episodes. Is there anything specifically like you do to prioritize like your self-care when things are kind of getting rough for you?
Yeah. I kind of go along the themes of like just protecting my peace and protecting my
Mm,
energy. And that was something I took up all of last year and even this year. And I'm probably going to continue it too. It's like, you hear it all the time as you grow older and why you get wiser or whatever it may be, your circle kind of gets smaller too,
mhm,
whether it's intentionally or unintentionally. And, certain people are only meant to be in certain chapters of your life. They're not meant to be in all chapters of your book, your life. And
mhm,
so, you know, I have really good friends that I've managed to have great relationships with. The people that are meant to be in my life, I think, are meant to be in my life. And, anybody that is negative or harming my peace or energy, then, quite frankly, I don't have time for that. And that's how I've maintained, just being positive and being able to do what I do. No specifics, but like, I mean, yeah, along the way there were, there's certain friends that I'm no longer friends with just because I realized that it was just like a one-sided friendship. So then I was like, well, I don't really have time for this. Like, you're only friends with me when it's convenient for you or you need something out of me. And so, my circle got smaller over the years, and the people that are in my life are meant to be in my life.
yeah. Yeah, my cutoff game is very strong now, like, very strong. I don't Protecting a piece is a must for me, and I especially with what we deal with now, it's just like, if you can't bring any positivity, then there's really no point to, like, be involved or, converse or, whatever the case is. Alright, I actually wanna talk about the trajectory in where the judging is going as far as like the subjective judging versus how, because there are new weight caps coming out.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with the subjective part of the game as far as like you doing all this work just to be told, hey, you need to go back and change this, or hey, you need to go back and change that. And then now with the new weight caps, not too sure if that'll impact you or not. Like, how are you feeling regarding that, and how are you dealing with like the subjectivity part of the game?
Yeah, the subjectivity part of the game, I think it's something that I struggle with sometimes more than other times because obviously it comes with placing. And
Mhm.
if I do well, hey, I'm happy. And you always take feedback better when you're doing well and you're relevant. Your placing's relevant. And obviously, when uh, I don't do well and I get feedback, that feedback whole weighs a lot more, good and bad. And um, I just got to realize that. I mean, since I've done so many shows, I've been in front of different panels that
Mhm.
want different things. And I understand that they're trying to be more consistent with it, but each judge I'm sure has their own preference, and their eyes are drawn to a certain person. They may or may not have a certain bias for somebody else's physique because it just looks more aesthetically pleasing. Maybe their smile's on point that day, like there's
Right.
just so much variability in the subjectivity that I try my best to take it with a grain of salt, and that, all I could do is really just get the feedback. But my coach reminds me that, I've done well. When I've done well in front of judges that judge the Olympia.
Mm.
So I did well in front of Tyler Mannion, in front of Sandy for 2 shows, Sandy, and, um, so he reminds me like, "Hey, like, they like your physique, you know, you have what they want, you just gotta keep getting better every year." And so that keeps me kinda grounded, and I trust the process with Cuts, Ariel, um, and it's funny because he with the new weight cap, I don't think it's gonna affect me too much, because I my stage weight hovers anywhere from 170 to 175 tops,
That's
um,
crazy.
and he actually doesn't want me to grow. He doesn't want me to grow
Really?
anymore. I've been with him for 3 years. Maybe year 1, when I first turned pro, like, he wanted me to grow a little bit because I was a little bit undersized, but year 2 and year 3, he's been telling me, "You don't need to grow, you're already big enough," like, especially where the sport's going, like, "We just gotta get your waist and your core tight, come in conditioned," and, he always said, "You have the muscle fullness and the pop, so you don't need size, you just need to just keep getting better and sharper." And so, I mean, I trust him. I mean, he's gotten so many guys to Olympia. Hopefully, me there one day.
Oh, it's gonna happen. It is gonna
um,
happen.
so I trust them. I trust them. I know. Sometimes I joke with my wife. I'm like, dude, sometimes I just want to blow up. Like I look at Jason Quinn, and he's
Ooh,
like, dude, that guy's massive. He has like
man.
10, 15 pounds of muscle on me. I know this last show he dieted down to like 174, which is crazy. That's the same amount of weight as me, but he just looked
Wow.
crispy. But
It's crazy,
sometimes
man.
I don't know how you feel about it, but sometimes I just want to blow up. But I got to keep myself grounded. Like, hey, you blow up,
Man,
you're
look,
deviating from the look.
it's funny you mention that, 'cause you're either on one end of the spectrum or you're on the other, and
Uh,
the side that I'm on, 'cause I'm literally right now like 220, so and I believe we're about the same height, so it's kinda crazy where it's just like, alright, I'm not worried about the weight gap because based off my height, I can kinda, I guess, eyeball where I think it's gonna be at, and that's typically around my stage weight anyway.
yeah,
But it's like sometimes I wish like, man, I wish I would have stayed like 190 and kind of just played around there a little bit. So, but yeah, but when I was down there, I was like, man, I just want to blow up. I want to get to
yeah,
like 230,
yeah,
240, something like that. So yeah, it's either one end or the other,
yeah,
but the genius in aerial cuts to pretty much say like, nah, like you're good. And he projected that and he was right because this was before you even went on your run. You
yeah.
see what I'm saying? So talk to me about him and how instrumental he's been in your career and how he's helped you, mentally navigate this path in your men's physique career.
Yeah, it was after 2019 when I turned pro, I actually turned pro with Jeremy Buendia. He was my coach at that time,
Oh, that's what's up.
and I actually learned a lot with Jeremy. I was working with him as an assistant coach as well, um,
Nice.
and so he really taught me how. He really showed me the ropes in terms of being a coach and an athlete at the same time,
Mhm.
and he showed me the ropes of also trying to get sponsorships. And so a lot of credit to Jeremy to helping me to get to where I am and understanding the business of things. And even at 2019, he was telling me like, hey, like there's a business in online coaching, and you can make a lot doing online coaching more than you think you're capable of. And then come end of 2019, well, I was with him for 2 years, 2017 to 2019, but
Mhm.
at the end of that, we left on good terms. We still have a good relationship. I decided to I wanted to kind of learn, expand my knowledge, and and that's when I was deciding which coach I wanted to go with after Jeremy. And there was a couple coaches in mind, but Ariel had always stood out to me,
Mhm.
because in 2019, after I turned pro, um, he actually came up to me, and I'm at that time I was a nobody. He came up to me and congratulated me on turning pro, and that left a lasting impression because he has so many athletes at every single show, and
Man,
for him to like recognize who I am and go out of his way to congratulate me and shake my hand, I think that left a very positive impression. And I was already aware of his work and his resume at that time, and so that really solidified who I was going to go to next as a coach, because I was like, well, I also want to make sure the next person I go to, I'm not I I'm a loyal guy. You know,
mhm,
I stick around for a while. Jeremy for 2 to 3 years, and with Ariel now 3 years, and I wanted to learn from Ariel as well. And so now come the second phase of my career was when I went with Ariel, and I've learned a lot through Ariel, just with the stuff, the way he coaches me, and how he prioritizes health, and
yes.
just the way I could tell how he formulates his meal plans. He's a big guy in carb cycling, and that's something that has really helped me level up as a coach, and I've implemented as well. So, I mean, as a coach now, I have a hybrid style of what Jeremy has taught me, what Ariel has taught me, and then what I think works for my clients. And so I'm very blessed to have had these two coaches and mentors in my life to help expand my knowledge. And then the rest has just been coming with experience over time. So I think I really can't complain learning from two amazing guys.
Man, you learn from the greats, brother. That's what's up. Yeah, man. I know, even with Jeremy, I forgot you were under Jeremy, like, when you turned pro, and I know, like, he still has his hand in, coaching a little bit, but I know he's preparing for the Olympia, like, cool dude, man. I ran into him in Vegas, like, for the first time. Just pretty honorable dude now, and just down to earth now, and then cuts. I remember after my pro debut, because I was in my feelings and just irritated about how that went. And I was just like, huh. I said, I want to try to get feedback from not just the judges, but someone who has that eye, that men's physique eye. And I just ran into him in the hallway, and he was like, yeah, shoot me your pictures and let me know. He didn't have to do that. He really didn't. But he did it. And it was just like, all right, like, that's pretty dope. And he pretty much was dead on as far as what the judges said. So, yeah, you're under great tutelage, man, and that old qualification's coming, especially under him for sure. So,
That's the goal. That's the
and
goal. If I ever get the qualification, it's gonna be with him. Yeah.
absolutely, it's coming. All right, man. Quick hitters before I let you go. Since you've been in this game for about 8 years, you've been pro since pretty much for a while now. What is some advice? I'm actually going to change this one. What is some advice for people that you can give who are chasing the pro card? Not necessarily those who are just stepping into bodybuilding. Like, some people step in and don't even know you can go pro. I was one of those people. And then when I found out, it was like this relentless chase. What is some advice you can give to those who are just chasing that illustrious pro card?
I think going back to what we talked about earlier, know your why.
Mm,
And because sometimes we are so hyper focused on getting that pro card that we forget what's after that. And I see certain guys, not my athletes, maybe a few, but I see other guys mainly that chase the pro card, maybe never get it, but they're like pausing their other aspects of life for the chasing the infamous pro card. And life goes on, and year after year life goes on, and I see people going broke competing, which is very unfortunate. It's a very expensive sport, and
mhm.
um, I think it's just having a bigger picture. Like, okay, what's your plan after the pro card? Is it a personal achievement kind of a thing? Are you going to use this to blow up your online business? Go be a trainer, or what's your game plan afterwards? Because after you get that, then it's like, what's the next step? You want to set yourself up for success and avoid any sort of setbacks or failures. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think that's the biggest advice. And also, um, so thinking big picture, and also, run your own race. There's guys that are going to turn pro on their first try. There's guys that I know who turn pro after 10 years. So just run your own race, but be present, but also think about your future. Don't be so hyper focused on that one dot in this timeline.
Man, I literally just had this conversation last night with one of my athletes who I took to Pittsburgh, and he's like, that was his first national show. He was winning local shows, 50 plus, and it was a reality check. And so, like, I get it. Like, you want to chase this pro card, but okay, what's after that? And then, like, what is the process? Like, you're not absolved from going through the process just like everyone else. Some people turn, like you said, turn pro in a year, and that's great for them. Some people it takes 2 years, 3 years, 10 years. Like, your process is your process. So you just got to take that with a grain of salt and just keep, the one thing we don't run from is the work. Like, the work is always going to be there.
Yep.
So, yeah, but if you do achieve it, then what? And that's a very big question. It was funny, like I didn't even think about that. I thought the pro card just came with all this stuff. I don't even
Yeah.
know what stuff is. I just thought it came with stuff. Like,
Yeah.
but
I, yeah. I actually want to elaborate on that.
mhm.
The going back to Jeremy, where he has helped me become more of a business mindset. I actually got all my sponsorships before I turned pro. I don't think a lot of people know that. People
Wow.
that do ask me how I get sponsorships, I actually tell them like, hey, I set myself up for success before I turned pro. And when I got my pro card, it was like a cherry on top. And
Wow.
it gave me credibility to really expand my online coaching and everything. Um, but I got everything before I turned pro, and a shout out to Jeremy because he has really showed me the ropes in terms of like how do you set yourself up as an athlete. You're an investment. Your
Mm,
sponsors are gonna be like, how are you gonna bring me money to the table? What do you offer? Because it's a mutual beneficial relationship. Otherwise, if it's one sided, it's not gonna last long. So
absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
it's going back to like what's after the pro card, you know?
Look, man, Frankie dropping business acumen on y'all. Y'all better listen. Yeah, for real. All right. Second one. You've done 10 pro shows. If you have one pro show circled that you want to win, minus the Olympia, we all want to win that one. What is that show that's like, I'm definitely going to do this show, or already have done it, but you want to win this specific show? What show is that?
If I had to choose, I would love to win on home turf. So Southern California, Anaheim, or San Diego, like there's no better way to get my first qualification or first pro win than being on home turf, especially because then I have friends and family and clients and all the above there in attendance. I mean, I don't know what my feelings are going to be if and when that happens, but I would love to be on home turf.
Man, overwhelming excitement, bro. So I'm gonna pitch this to you because I pitched it to Jason. So, because it's a lot of us from out here, bro. And the one thing I was talking to Jonas too, and I was like, I feel like every time you compete, bro, it's like a home field advantage. Like, you be having like 100 people in the crowd. And he started laughing. I was like, but I have this idea, man, where those who are homegrown, whether it's Anaheim or San Diego, where like we sign up for like the April show or whenever it is, hopefully there is one in April, where we all bring like 30, 40 people in like custom made shirts, and we just make this like a 200, 300, maybe even 350, like people in the crowd where
Yeah.
it's just super loud. Like it was just like this crazy vision. And Jason was like, "Oh man, that'd be dope." And even Jonas said it too, because Jonas always bringing like 100 people anyway.
Yeah.
So, so I was like, so I'm gonna throw that to you too, because me and you are on the same page as that, as far as like, yeah, I want to win one home. I want to win one in front of my family, and so on and so forth. So just a heads up for April. I'm just throw it out
All
there.
right. You know, I will definitely keep that in mind. I got to make sure mentally after
Yes.
this last run, I don't want to repeat the same mistake. But I'll definitely keep that in mind in April. I think that'd be dope to like have all the homegrown muscle contest athletes, NPC athletes, now pros, do the same
Yes.
show and just wild out.
Yeah, I vision it being so loud in there, bro. And then like you'll just have certain pockets with certain like cultural things or family things or just colors, like whatever you have your peoples wear. Like that was just a dope vision. But yeah, keep it in mind, man. That's just something I'm thinking about. And I'm
Yeah,
gonna throw it out there in January too to
yeah.
pretty much everyone. So we'll see. And then last but not least, what is the last one I want to ask you? Huh. What happens after Frankie gets the Olympia qualification? Like, what does that do for you?
Shoot. I know I just talked about what's after, your pro card and have a plan
Right.
afterwards, but I haven't really thought about that one too much just because I've been chasing it and trying to get back to being relevant as an athlete, top 5 placing. That's in my books what being relevant means. Um, but man, if and when I get the Olympia qualification, what's after that? I think it's more of a in this sense, it's more of a personal achievement because then at that time you're like, for that year at least, you're the best of the best, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell my kids and grandkids one day that I did this. And I think when I got my pro card, it gave me credibility, solidified me and helped me expand my online coaching business.
Nice.
And I think getting the Olympia qualification will kind of establish my status amongst the pros, because there's levels to it, like I started off as a rookie as a pro, not even relevant, didn't even place, and I struggled through my second year as a pro, third year, and so on and so forth. But I think getting that qualification will kind of, okay, Frankie's here to stay. He's here to stay. He's a threat, like
Mm-hmm.
and who knows, maybe be in people's predictions and all that stuff, which isn't a big deal, but I think it's more of a personal achievement that like, hey, I got to this point through, just the grind and not giving up because this is my year 4 as a pro, still trying to chase winning my first pro show. And, it's all perspective. Some people are like, dang, year 4, you're like deep into it. Other people are like, oh yeah, I didn't get my first O qualification until year 5 or whatever it may be. So it's all perspective. Like, but I think, obviously we're not going to be competing for, at least I'm not going to be competing until like I'm like 40, 50 or 60. So
Yeah, no.
I understand I have very limited years and I call it my prime years because, the
Mm-hmm.
sport, you got to have that look. You got to be a pretty boy, you know? So I only have so many years left. So I think like working with a little bit of urgency and just solidifying that like I did this and I was a threat at that point in my career.
Absolutely. All right, last one. I got one more. If you could have two people on here to kind of further along this dialogue as far as telling their story and giving some mental insight as far as what they go through and what they think and how they feel, who would those two people be?
Shoot. All right, let me think about this.
It can be anybody, any division as well. I'm going all across. So,
Yeah, yeah. Trying to think. Well, I think it'd be cool. Well, I recently saw Ricky from
hmm
Chino Hills, and so I think he could bring a different insight, and be on this podcast. I think also, you know, I think even having Jeremy on here would be cool if he's available and responds. I think he can offer a lot of insight on bodybuilding, mental health, and even maybe even give an insight on how you set yourself up as an athlete and success and business. That's something
Yes.
he's helped me with, especially in the beginning of my career. Um, I think that's very valuable advice that not everybody can have access to. So
Mhm.
you know, so I think those two immediately came to mind just because I recently saw Ricky, and
I know, man.
obviously,
Y'all did the workout we was supposed to do. I was looking. I was like, but I mean, I gotta catch up with y'all, man. For real,
yeah,
Ricky, you coming on here for sure. We'll try to get Jeremy on here. Frankie's job is to get both of y'all on here. That's his job moving forward. Uh, but yeah, man, it's been a good one. Appreciate you, Frankie, my guy. Thank you so much for joining, man.
thanks for
See y'all
having
on the
me.
next one. Peace.
All right.
Uh,